May the Lord bless the reading of his word. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
You know, I started to giggle just a little bit as I heard the Torah portion read. Had it ever occurred to you, and I just sort of noticed this, that the Lord says to Moses that they're supposed to put the covering on top of the ark, and then he says, put this in the ark. And I keep wondering to myself, if they ever said, well, if I put the cover on top of the ark first, how am I going to get it in the ark? So it just struck me, and I started giggling just a little bit. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, this morning's Torah portion is Parshat Terumah. Terumah comes from Exodus chapter 25 and verse 2. 25 verse 2 says, this is the story of God speaking to Moses, and God says to Moses in the Hebrew, Daber el bnei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel, v'yikhu li terumah. Terumah. That's where the name of the Torah portion comes from. And most translations say something like, speak to the children of Israel, that they raise a contribution. Okay? Anybody have anything different? Okay. Sometimes it'll say, speak to the children of Israel and have them bring me an offering. Sometimes it'll say, take up a collection. But the phrase, v'yikhu li terumah, v'yikhu is the third person plural imperfect form of the verb lakach. And you all know what that means, right? Sure you do. Of course not. Lakach is the Hebrew for to, it's the verb that means to take. So when you take the third person plural imperfect, okay, it says they will take. They will take. Speak to the children of Israel that they will take. Okay? And then the other part is terumah. Li simply means to me. So tell the children of Israel to that they will take to me terumah. Terumah is from the word room, not R-O-O-M, like this is a room, but room like resh vav, final mem, which means, of course, to lift or to raise up. So terumah is often translated as offering. In some cases, it's translated as a specific offering, the heave offering. And what does it mean to heave? To toss, to throw? What I'm asking, I'm just putting this out there. To heave means to exert a force to push against. So a heave offering, in this sense, is to take what's being offered and heave it up, to lift up, to raise it up. Have you ever heard the phrase, to raise funds? Aha! Yeah. Oh, yeah, I get it now. Okay? That's what they were doing. The terumah offering was an offering that was lifted up. It was raised up. So Exodus 25:2 could be translated as, speak to the children of Israel, that they take to me that which they are raising up to me. When we speak of raising funds, this is the concept. And that's how this morning's portion begins, which should be no surprise then that this particular portion, when you combine it with especially our Brit Chadashah portion from Corinthians, most of the time the message, the sermon, talks about what? Money, giving, tithing, collecting, raising funds. I'm not going to do that. I refuse to do that. I will not be conformist. Okay? It's important to remember, though, that this is what's going on. Moses on the mountain. Remember last week, the beginning of the portion starts off with Moses at the base of the mountain talking to God. God says, go tell the children of Israel something. He walks back, tells the children of Israel, and then God invites him and Aaron and the 70 elders back up the mountain partway. They ate together and saw God. The elders and Aaron go back down the mountain, and Moses goes up. He's now up on the mountain with a mano a mano conversation with God. That's where we are. And he starts off this portion with saying, all right, look, you need to take an offering. You need to do this thing. Okay? Moses receiving these instructions, and as we look at the rest of this portion, the instructions that God begins to give Moses in this morning's portion are very, very detailed. They're very detailed. Okay? In fact, we will continue looking at the instructions for the construction of the tabernacle for many more chapters. Okay? God gives Moses for the instructions for the construction of the tabernacle, sparing no detail. The items described in this portion, remember, this is just one portion. The items described in this portion include the ark, the covering for the ark. It's not, and he does that separately. So you'll create an ark, then create a covering for the ark. So the ark, the covering for the ark, the table for the bread of the presence, and the menorah with the golden lampstand. Also described, can't leave this out, the curtains. Ladies, you know that the curtains are just as equally as important as anything else in the house. They have to match. So God tells them about the covers, the curtains, the tent. Gentlemen, you know the kind of board you use is just as important as any possible curtain in the house. So God talks about the boards, what kind of boards, how long the boards should be, and the sockets that are used for the fittings, and the veil and the screen, and that go inside the tabernacle. And that's just for starters. Remember, this is just the beginning of what will be several chapters worth of instructions on the tabernacle. After that, he moves to the outside and instructs on the altar that sits in the courtyard. And then he goes on, he says, okay, it's almost like an afterthought. Hey, here's the bronze altar. You need to make this altar for the courtyard. And oh, by the way, the courtyard needs to be such and so long and so and so deep. And so he gives detail after detail. Nothing is left out. He includes the dimensions. He includes what kind of material or fabric that's used. He even includes where to put the things. It's not enough to make the lampstand. The lampstand needs to be on the north side of the inside of the tent, and opposite it on the other side is supposed to be the table. And so he tells you everything. Not a detail is left out. And while it might seem like a lot of details, and that he might not care, God prefaces the entire conversation with a singular phrase that will change our mind. Exodus chapter 25, verses 8 and 9. God tells Moses, have the people build him a sanctuary. The word mikdash, that's translated as sanctuary, and later used as the word for the great temple, which is where we're going to start making a connection. Okay? The word mikdash, translated as sanctuary here, said, have them make me a sanctuary, later is used as the great temple in Jerusalem, is from the same word as kadosh, meaning holy. The mem in front of it makes it a place. It's literally translated as a place of holiness, or a place set apart. And God says to Moses that it is according to all that he shows him that they're supposed to make this. That says to me, every detail is important. Every single one. In other words, God is going to show Moses exactly how he wants this place to be built, this holy place. And then he punctuates the statement by saying, V'chein ta'asu, V'chein ta'asu, just so, or just like that, or even so, that's how you make it. The entire Torah, in fact, is a documentary, if you will, of people who trust in God, and what God tells them to do, and how they respond to what God tells them. So Moses is being told by God what to do. What we're being shown is how Moses responds to what God said. We also see what happens when people do what God tells them not to do. We see that in Nadav and Avihu, the descendants of Aaron, the high priest, when they bring an Ish Zara, strange fire. God didn't tell them to do that. So we see what happens when people do what God tells them or does not tell them to do. We also see what happens when they don't do what God tells them to do. Which is why our Haftorah portion is so interesting this week. We know a lot about Shlomo